Our next speaker that I'd like to introduce tonight to is Bill Switzer, a former Blue Angel pilot from the 7172 team. When Bill completes his talk, we'll give him about 15-20 minutes, and I'll keep a stopwatch on. We'll go ahead and do the 30-minute video. Bill was born in Highland Park, Illinois, and grew up in West Virginia. He received his BS degree in industrial management from West Virginia Tech in 1965. Bill served his country for over 30 years as an officer in the United States Navy. He retired in 1995 with the rank of captain. During Captain Switzer's distinguished naval career, he flew 26 different types of aircraft. Among them were the Grumman F-9F-8 Cougar, the Grumman F-11F Tiger, the Grumman F-14 Tomcat, the Grumman A-6 Intruder, the Grumman E-2 Hawkeye. There's something wrong here. There's too many Grummans. Then he switched over and he was able to fly the Vought F-8 Crusader. And he had 2 combat cruises aboard the USS aircraft carriers Tycon and Gurney. He flew the A-7 Corsair II. And then he moved over to McDonnell Douglas finally, and he flew the F-4J Phantom II with the Blues. He's also flown the McDonnell Douglas A-18C Hornet, the Douglas A-3D Sky Warrior, a Lockheed product, the S-3 Viking, the Sikorsky SH-3 Sea King helicopter, and finally the Sikorsky H-60 Blackhawk. He's accumulated over 6,000 tactical jet hours, participated in numerous strategic and tactical planning contingency operations and their execution. He's flown over 150 combat missions in Vietnam, was a commanding officer from 1980 to 81 of the F-14 Tomcat Fighter Squadron VF-24, the Fighting Renegades. He's commanded 2 different air wings, including the planning and conducting contingency operations 24/7, and the training of 2,500 naval personnel, maintaining 80 tactical aircraft in full combat mission capable readiness. Served as a Navy planner during Desert Storm and coordinated operations in the Pentagon with all the military service and federal agencies. He served on 3 major staffs and was the operations officer for all the U.S. naval forces in Europe. During this tour, he was responsible for the training and operation of over 18,000 sailors and Marines and spearheaded contingency planning for Bosnia and Kosovo. He has made 10 major deployments and has visited more than 40 countries. Currently, Bill is the Federal Security Director here at local Lambert St. Louis International Airport. He was selected for this position in August of 2002. His outstanding leadership was rewarded in 2011 when he was named the Federal Security Director of the Year, and the TSAS St. Louis was recognized as the Airport of the Year. Bill and his wife Pam have 2 daughters, 1 grandson and 1 granddaughter. He's an avid jogger and competes annually in the Go St. Louis half marathons, and he's won 4 of the last 7 in his age bracket, which is running. And I would like to introduce him now as a guest to bring us up to date on his experiences flying the F-4J with the Blue Angels teams. Bill, as well.
And we did religiously fly about 36 inches apart with all the maneuvers. And so therefore you couldn't have any distractions or anything else. It had to be total concentration, and you knew within about an inch or 2 if you're high or low or whatever, and that's all you focused on for the whole air show. So you start out, and I was the opposing solo, so you roll inverted, and if I let go of the stick, right away the airplane would go nose up. Well, that happened in Columbus, Ohio, and that's where I got 9 negative G's. But then, so you roll inverted, and then you do your maneuvers, and then right away you pull about 9 positive G's, right? So you go from about 1 negative to 9 positive. But when I was pulling up, I'd black out just like that. I knew the nose was up, and then all of a sudden you black out. So then I started shaking about 4,000 feet, and then I'd recover about 9,000 feet. I thought I had a brain tumor, you know. So it just takes a while to build up your endurance. So I finally told the lead solo pilot, and I said, "Hey, Skip," I said, "I think I got a brain tumor or something." I said, "For the past week or 10 days, every time I pull the 9 negative G's or 9 positive G's, I go into convulsions." He says, I'm wondering when you're going to tell me that. He said, that happens to me all the time. But that's one of the secrets they never told you. You had to figure it out, see if you had enough gumption to tell somebody, I think I got a problem. Let's see, the other deal was, when you're flying inverted, we're probably about anywhere from about 100 feet above the ground inverted, and you never looked inside the cockpit, because if you looked inside your cockpit just for a split second, your instruments are lagging probably about a second or two behind what the airplane's really doing. So you just set your nose out there on the horizon, and you can tweak it, and you know exactly what you're doing, right? So anyway, down in Fall, Alabama, it was overcast, it was misty, poor visibility, and anybody from Alabama here? We know everything's brown down there. The rivers are brown, the dirt's brown, everything's brown down there. So anyway, unfortunately, we just had the Chairman of Joint Chief of Staff down there, Admiral Moore. That was his hometown. So we have an air show right on the riverside. So my maneuver as a solo pilot, one of the maneuvers, I'd roll inverted, and it's supposed to be just a nice slow roll. So you could hear the narrator would say, ladies and gentlemen, off to your left, you see Lieutenant Bill Switzer doing the inverted to inverted maneuver. Well, I rolled inverted, and then I said, well, hell, I can't even see the horizon. So I just happened to look in the river. I mean, just look down. I couldn't figure out where the hell it was, you know. So the next thing I know, I saw whitecaps in the river, so I had to push the nose up, and that's when I got a rooster tail out of that thing. But it did stop the narration, got everybody's attention, but it's a one hell of a good maneuver, you know. And so I never did that again. And then one time, let's see, we flew over Buckeye Stadium in Columbus, Ohio, and my parents were from West Virginia, but we had a show site probably about 50 miles away from the stadium. So you're sweaty, you know, you got gloves on and perspiring and everything. So anyway, here's that maneuver again, inverted to inverted maneuver. But this is a rolling show because, again, the visibility is down, but we can do some rolling maneuvers, you know. So anyway, I yugged the airplane. That's what we call it, just yug the airplane and roll real fast, and you don't lose any altitude. Well, I yugged the airplane, and by the time I yugged it, the stick fell out of my hand. So next thing I knew, I go straight up, pretty much straight up, and I'm climbing through about 8,000 feet. When I finally recover, come to my senses, and what happened, instead of blacking out, I red out. You know, so all the blood, since we don't wear G-suits, just went from my legs right up to my head. And then, so I recovered, but that was a busted maneuver because I was about 20 seconds late trying to get through the clouds, trying to find the center point and come back in. So they did check the airplane over. I didn't crack any wing spars or anything like that, but I gotta tell you one thing. I never told anybody on the team what I did because it was sort of like stupid, but on the other hand, stupid things do happen. And so anyway, the next day I go to work and it felt like somebody hit me in the eyes. Both eyeballs, you know, were all bloodshot. And I finally had to convince everybody what I had to, you know, what happened. But then when you go to the cocktail functions or the schools or whatever, everybody says, man, that guy must do a lot of drinking, doesn't he? So it actually took about 6 weeks before I got my eyes back to, you know, to looking good and or looking white. So anyway, that was that one. And then let's see, the other one was, I'll just tell you briefly, the Top Gun movie. I was a commanding officer of an F-14 squadron. We just came back from a nine-month deployment to the Indian Ocean, and so they're making Top Gun at NAS Miramar. So they used my ready room because we were basically in a stand-down mode, and then we had and we were still proficient flying the Tomcat. So I dedicated 4 airplanes and 4 pilots to making that movie. And because that way you want to stick with the same guy, same script, and they could get the scenes they wanted. Now you see, if you look at Top Gun again, you'll see where the guy almost flew into the mountain. He almost flew into the mountain. He got a little carried away with the script and see how low he could go, and that's what he did. And then Tom Cruise, pretty arrogant son of a gun. I don't know. I mean, he was real arrogant. He wouldn't talk to the families, wouldn't talk to the kids or anybody else. He was just pretty much prima donna. But so when you see that scene where he ejects into water, well, I will give him a little bit of credit. He did take a little bit of survival training, but the guy's in the water and he almost drowned. They had to drop a couple SEALs in there to save his life, and to this day he never said thank you. Yeah. And then finally the last one was when I came aboard, I was a commanding officer of an F-14 squadron flying on the USS Kitty Hawk in the Indian Ocean, and they got sea snakes out there. Anybody heard of sea snakes?
Yeah.
They got sea snakes out there, and this is back in 1981, and they had 12 to 16-foot swells out there, and had sharks out there. And this is 1981, is when the carriers used to just dump the trash over the side. So what do you got? The sharks out there festering off the garbage, right? So this day, I'm coming in, land aboard the carrier. I'm the first one of the whole flight, and everybody knows there's 4 cables on the ship. Well, my tail hook, the cable that I got, and all this happened in 2.5 seconds. It pulled the cable out, and I've had about 1,300 carrier landings, so I know what a carrier landing feels like. But then my hook grabbed hold of the cable, and I went from about 80 feet from going over the end, and all of a sudden it came like to a screeching halt. Even though we're locked in our harness, my head was right up against a rifle scope that we used to put in there. And I said, well, I think we're going to stop. And then I heard a loud bang in the back, have no idea what's going on. And so anyway, just as soon as I heard that pop, I told the guy to eject, my radar intercept officer. And I'm still trying to fly the airplane. So I told him eject, and that's all you see of the airplane. It just goes dribbling off the side. You don't see any canopy coming open. You don't see any ejection seats or anything like that. So what happened, the canopy comes up, and then I hear his seat fire, and I said, that's Sierra Hotel. Anybody know what that means? Sure. Ladies, close your ears, shit hot. I mean, that's shit hot. I mean, that's good. And then the airplane hit the water, and I said, well, my seat's not going to fire. And then what happened, the airplane just dribbled off the side, even though I had it in full military power, but the cable just slowed me down from about 150 knots down to about 70. So the airplane hits the water, and I said, my seat's not going to fire, and about that time it fired. And it got me out of the airplane. It was either under the water or on top of the water. Nobody ever saw it. So anyway, what we do have in the Navy, which is good, your oxygen mask, we can breathe down about 100 feet. So we can go down about 100 feet and still try to survive if you got your senses and think about what you're doing. So I didn't go down that far. But what happened also, we have CO2 bottles on our life preserver. This is the first cruise ever that they put these things on. If you go down to a certain depth, they are saltwater activated. So this thing brought me up to the top. And now I'm looking around, and the carrier is about from here to where the parking lot is. And that's a hell of a sight, you know, look at the carrier. And so then I realized the helicopter was right on top of me. I give him a thumbs up, said I'm fine. Go to the Rio, because he got half of a chute and he's about ready to be drugged down by the big screws of the aircraft carrier. And so they go over and get him. Now, I'm not with it yet, you know, because I'm somewhat unconscious. So anyway, then I got to get rid of the shroud lines, and I had a couple of them tangled around my legs, so you got to get those things out, and then get myself detached from the parachute. So now, the one thing that saved me, I think, it wasn't my time to go. I don't care what you believe in. It wasn't my time to go, and so here I am. But what happened, so then I'm outside, and on that particular catapult shot that morning, or that afternoon, the radar intercept officer says, hey, Skipper, look at all those sea snakes. And it just happened, it was mating season, so there must have been 1/4 of a mile of them, thousands of them intertwined. So what am I thinking when I'm in the water? I look right behind me, and I've been daggone if there isn't a sea snake. So I do a little paddle around here on the swells. Well, it wasn't a sea snake. What it was my seat cushion. It's about that long, and it's sticking about that far out of the water. But then your mind is still not with it all, right? And then I look around, and I'll be daggone if there wasn't a shark's fin right there following the carrier. And it was so vivid I could hear the boom, 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 boom. But then I look around, and it turned out it wasn't a shark. What it was the ventral fin of the F-14 as it went down. So anyway, I was probably in the water about 15 or 20 minutes so they could get the radar intercept officer up, and then they came out and they picked me up, and it was a hell of an experience. So what happened, everybody took a drug test, nobody was on drugs, and it was human error. And all 4 cables should have been set for 52,000 pounds each. That's the resistance, or that's what they needed to trap the F-14. Well, the cable that I got, it wasn't set because the dial had been broken, and it was only set for 13,000 pounds. So that's the one I got. So now I'm coming along with 52,000 pounds. And so I just snapped the cable and the whole resting gear right out of the ship. So so that's my story. So other than that, life is good. It's a pleasure talking to you and talking to Caleb. There's a future Navy fighter pilot. And we've got a future Air Force officer right there. So we're all joint. And I got to tell you one thing. You talk about the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels. During my time frame, we were that close. And you know, I had one of my friends, and the Thunderbird, he got killed at an air show up in Dulles. But I got to tell you one thing, we were very close during our time frame. We talk about air shows, talk about maneuvers, and we had a real good rapport. Competitive, yes, but downright professional. And we did perform a couple shows together, so everybody knew what they had to do. Yes, sir.
2 questions. One, how'd you let go to stick, and what did the guys do when they found out?
Oh, they didn't do anything when they
Duct
did.
tape or-
What happened? My hand, you know, you just get sweaty all the time. And when I jugged the airplane, I just so happened to hit the diamond wash. You know, they were about 15 seconds ahead of me, and where I've never hit it before. Somehow, just that day, the wind wasn't blowing, and it was just stagnant air. So I when I jugged, I hit that jet wash. It just compounded the whole deal. And they never said anything to me about my eyeballs except for about the first week. Okay? All right. Well, again, it's my pleasure, and I commend you there, and I had a good talk about to you, a World War II veteran. My hat's off to you, and thank you very much.